I'm continuing my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a little bit as I move along. Right now I am reading in the parallel accounts of 1 Kings and 2 Chronicles. And we've just read about how Solomon has hired or gotten the cooperation of Hiram, king of Tyre, to help build the temple. He has built the temple. Well, in chapter 6 of 1 Kings, he builds the temple, and we get a description of what the temple, its size, and some of the decorations that were put in it. We are now going to 2 Chronicles, chapter 3, in which this same event, the building of the temple and the decorations are again described in somewhat different detail. So let us read this. Chapter 3. Solomon begins to build the temple. He makes the veil and the pillars and uses much gold and many precious stones. Then Solomon began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah, where the Lord appeared unto David his father, in the place that David had prepared in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. And he began to build in the 2nd day of the 2nd month in the 4th year of his reign. Okay, so first of all, our timing is the same. 2nd day of the 2nd month in the 4th year. That's exactly what 1 Kings says. This is where we read here the location of the temple. That's not mentioned directly in 1 Kings. It doesn't say exactly where the temple is. But the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. This, if you will recall, is when, remember, at the end of 2 Samuel, David numbers Israel to go to war. God gets mad, sends a plague, sends a pestilence. In order to end the pestilence, David, he sees the angel of death in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite, and he is told to buy it and build an altar there and make sacrifices. So where David saw the angel, that is where we're building the temple. Verse 3. Now these are the things wherein Solomon was instructed for the building of the house of God. The length by cubits after the first measure was 60 cubits, and the breadth 20 cubits. And the porch that was in the front of the house, the length of it was according to the breadth of the house, 20 cubits, and the height was 120. And he overlaid it within with pure gold. And the greater house he sealed with fir tree, which he overlaid with fine gold, and set thereon palm trees and chains. And he garnished the house with precious stones for beauty, and the gold was gold of Parvaim. He overlaid also the house, the beams, the posts, and the walls thereof, and the doors thereof, with gold, and graved cherubims on the walls. And he made the most holy house, the length whereof was according to the breadth of the house, 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 20 cubits. And he overlaid it with fine gold, amounting to 600 talents. And the weight of the nails was 50 shekels of gold. And he overlaid the upper chambers with gold. And in the most holy house he made 2 cherubims of image work, and overlaid them with gold. And the wings of the cherubim were 20 cubits long. One wing of the one cherub was 5 cubits, reaching to the wall of the house, and the other wing was likewise 5 cubits, reaching to the wing of the other cherub. The one wing of the other cherub was 5 cubits, reaching to the wall of the house, and the other wing was 5 cubits also, joining to the wing of the other cherub. The wings of these cherubs spread themselves forth 20 cubits, and they stood on their feet, and their faces were inward. So in other words, we do have a little more detail on here with the cherubs, because now we know that the cherubs are facing inward. And they're facing inward. They're not facing each other. They're not facing the main hall. They're not facing out towards they're facing in to the Holy of Holies. So when you first come into the temple, you were seeing the backs of the cherubs. And then when the high priest goes in, he would be where the cherubs can see him. Now, another thing here was a small detail. I can't remember if it was specified in 1 Kings, but the Holy of Holies, what in 1 Kings calls the oracle, the inner chamber, where the ark will sit. This is the back third of the temple, of the main temple building. Remember the tabernacle, we had the outer court, then you had the holy, and then you had the Holy of Holies. And what we're talking about here is the building. You have 2/3 of it is the holy place, and 1/3 of it is the Holy of Holies, where the ark will sit. So, anyways, verse 14. And he made the veil of blue and purple and crimson and fine linen, and wrought cherubims thereon. Also he made before the house 2 pillars of 35 cubits high, and the chapiter that was on the top of each of them was 5 cubits. And he made chains as in the oracle, and put them on the heads of the pillars, and made 100 pomegranates, and put them on the chains. And he reared up the pillars before the temple, one on the right hand and the other on the left, and called the name of that on the right hand Jachin, and the name of that on the left Boaz. So now these pillars are on the outside, the cherubs are on the inside of the temple, separating where the holy and the Holy of Holies is separated. And then there's a veil draped either, it doesn't really say on here on what side of the cherubim the veil is, but remember there's a veil, just as like in the tabernacle, a veil draped to separate the two. Now the Holy of Holies was overlaid first with cedar trees and then gold. The holy place was fir trees and then gold. And then outside the temple are these 2 pillars. That's about as far as my knowledge extends. I'm not sure what the chains are. I think that they're attaching the pillars to the top of the temple, but I could be wrong there. And we're just going to leave that here. It's interesting details. It's almost the same, just worded differently, but there are a few extra details in there that we don't get in 1 Kings. But I'm going to leave that here. My next chapter, I will be returning to 1 Kings. See you there.